So the second component is custom instructions for your chatbot to help it fully embody your brand. And when we say fully embody your brand, there's so many pieces to that puzzle. There's the like the words we use, our brand phrases, like we think about brand core, like mission, vision, values. How do you have a robot embody your values as it sits on the internet in front of your customers on the website, right?
Welcome to the Tourism AI Podcast, a show where we explore the intersection of artificial intelligence and the tourism industry. I'm your host, Peter Pilarski, and today I'm really excited because we got some big changes happening in the show. So we're evolving. I always talk about AI as a revolution, but as businesses, we need to go through some evolution. And so that's where we're at Tourism AI Network. We're going through some evolution. So I'm super excited to have Josh Houston on the show here today. Josh is now our new co-host of the podcast, and Josh is also a newly minted advisor to the Tourism AI Network. So for background, Josh and I have been working together now for the past several months, building a bunch of cool things, which we're going to be rolling out very soon for the Tourism AI Network. And we thought it was time to sort of evolve the podcast a little bit, bring Josh on, talk about some of the things we're building, but also talk about some of the things that are really relevant in terms of implementing AI in your tourism organization. So Josh, thanks for joining.
Happy to be here, and hello everyone. So happy to be here and just chit chat a little bit about what's going on in the world and share some thoughts and ideas and mostly put our curiosity on display.
Exactly. Yeah. So Josh, why don't you start off with just a quick little intro? Tell us who you are, tell us your background, and tell us why you're my guy when it comes to AI now.
Absolutely, yeah. So yeah, Josh Houston. I am an AI solution architect, and I work with mostly thought leaders and their teams and in the tourism space with Peter on helping people step into AI for the first time and find their comfort in their AI adoption journey. So we talk about AI intuition. We help people discover unique and fun and very practical ways that AI can help them individually, and then we partner with organization leaders to help them see the top-down view of how AI can help their organization, how it can help them fulfill their mission, their vision, and really embody their core values across the team and in their tech stacks. So we spend a lot of time talking to people about how they do the work. We do a lot of like operational, we call it auditing, but operational conversations with folks to hear how they're currently working, what are their pain points, what do they want to change, how would they like to see AI step in and work with them, and then we help them make that happen and bring it to life.
I love that you ended with make that happen because I keep asking Josh, is this possible? And he keeps saying yes. So he just keeps making things happen for us at the Tourism AI Network, and we're going to be rolling out some services to make things happen in your tourism business as well with the assistance of Josh and his team. So great team, great guy. Super jacked to have him on the podcast here with us today. So I wanted to just talk a little bit about kind of how we're changing things up at the podcast. So as anybody who's been following, you know that we've been kind of covering current events a little bit and how they sort of current events and AI apply to the tourism industry. We may still touch on current events once in a while, but it's going to be much less of a focus. We're going to be diving much deeper into kind of the practical side of AI. So how to actually implement AI into your tourism business, how to get real results from tourism, sort of things you need to know, things you need to consider. Obviously, we're going to be talking about some of the things that we're working on and how you can take advantage of them in your tourism business. So much more hands-on, much more practical. So I think it's going to be a value add for all of our listeners. We certainly hope, and we want to hear from you. So if you like the new format, if you like what you're hearing, tell us about it, and tell us what you want to hear more about. If there's topics that you want us to dive into, we got our subject matter expert here, so we can dive into some stuff. It'll be super fun. So we are going to get into today, we're going to talking about website chatbots, and we're going to be talking about things you need to know when you're considering an AI-powered website chatbot on your tourism website. So super relevant. I think I'll say that we've been going through a number of AI adoption framework processes over the last few months, and website chatbots are probably the number one thing that comes up in terms of I think kind of low-hanging fruit, things that, tourism businesses would want, things that destinations would want. Obviously, there's a lot of advantages to website chatbots that are AI powered in terms of, 24-hour operation, all that kind of stuff. But before we actually get into the chatbot conversation, I did want to touch on one current event item because it's sort of hot off the presses right now and everybody's talking about it. And it is called Project Strawberry. So just to tee it up, Project Strawberry is a code name for a project that OpenAI has been working on for, I would say, probably the better part of the last year or so. So just for context and a little bit of a history, nobody really knows why Sam Altman was sort of fired from OpenAI by his board. Some of the rumors around that firing was that he was working on something called Project Q-Star, and this Project Q-Star was showing some promise around some things related to advanced reasoning, ability to do math and solve more complex problems. It's never been proven that that's the reason, but certainly that was one reason that some of the media pundits and sort of AI followers sort of quoted as a possible reason. And that Project Q-Star actually has evolved name-wise into Project Strawberry. So, and now the rumors are that Project Strawberry could be released before September 20th. So just around the corner here, and it's pretty exciting. So Josh, what do you know about Project Strawberry outside of what I just introduced, and how do you think it's going to impact things?
Yeah, so my relationship to the rumor mill and all of the different like murmurings is relatively low on Strawberry, particularly because we've been focused on just how do we make use of what do we have, right? And in the implementation side, there's like a balance between head in the clouds, feet on the ground. And that tension here is good. With Project Strawberry, here's what we're hoping for. I'll say this. What we expect the difference to be from our GPT-4o series, so the Omni models, is a step forward in the long-term or advanced reasoning component. So right now, when you're talking to a chat GPT, you're talking to the 4o model, and that's multimodal. You can send it images, you can send it audio, it can respond and navigate that and text and kind of jump between the different modes. But with Strawberry, I think what we're going to be able to see a marked improvement with our current models and their capability is the ability to handle way more context. So right now, like they've been increasing the context size that we can add to even just we're talking end user as a ChatGPT user here, right? And within the APIs, it's the same thing, but just back end and for developers. But for interacting with the models, the more context you provide, the better it's going to be able the better it's going to be able to perform in terms of how relevant the responses are, in terms of how helpful it is, in terms of how accurate it is to the instructions it's been given. And we're going to be able to see like hopefully a marked improvement in terms of if I upload say a 100-page document to ChatGPT right now, it breaks.
Yeah.
There are other models, the Claude models are actually doing pretty good with this. You can upload 10 100-page documents and it navigate those documents pretty fluidly and does, less hallucination than before. So we expect that Strawberry or whatever they, ends up and they end up launching will be able to at least normally the trend has been they'll at least beat the first competitor and then they'll go up by marginally like a few percentage points, right? So from what I'm expecting that would be the case. They could completely blow our socks off and release all sorts of new stuff that no one's done before, which would be really exciting and fun. But I'm not your expert on, yeah, the perspective, what could be. I expect on the back end side, like controlling apps and doing actions and the function calling, all of that with the JSON schema that they've been releasing will get better. And what that'll mean for the developers in the world is that we have to do less programming on the automation side, and we can rely more on the intelligence system to navigate the tooling that we already have built. So
Yeah.
that I'm excited for because that just takes the cost of development down. It takes our tech debt down as we build new things. And that's an exciting upside. But once again, on the developer side, people are like, well, unless we can see it and we can read the documentation and
Yeah.
we can do testing, like if you're not in those testing red groups and the OpenAI like closed circles of getting to alpha beta, yeah, it's just boots on the ground.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, and I appreciate that, and certainly, so this is why I think you're a good podcast co-host because I try to spend all my time in the clouds with my head in the clouds, and so I'm obviously kind of a vision is sort of my strong suit, and I listen to a lot of podcasts and sort of just try
Mhm.
to kind of keep a pulse on what's going on, and so really where this strawberry, and again, I think you're absolutely right. Nobody actually knows what this thing's going to be able to do, what it's going to look like. There's a lot of sort of speculation around even is it going to be inside the chat GPT model? Is it going to be a separate model? Is it, sort of,
Mhm.
is it a separate price point? There's just a lot of questions. So, to be determined. But what I will say is that, OpenAI a few months ago put out sort of these 5 steps that they're sort of using as sort of tracking towards, I guess, some version of AGI or artificial general intelligence. And so, well, step one is just the sort of the foundational models, the chatbots that we all know today. Step
Mhm.
two is what they call reasoners. And really, Project Strawberry is, I think, taking us firmly into step two. So it is definitely a step change in the evolution of sort of AI or large language model sort of, I guess, adoption, or not adoption, but
Evolution,
evolution.
yeah.
And so, as Sam Altman from OpenAI likes to say all the time, people keep asking him, well, what's going to be different? And he just keeps saying it's just going to be smarter. And I think we can't underestimate just going to be smarter, because
Hmm.
smarter, when you're talking about AI, could be magnitude of 100 times smarter, 1,000 times smarter. Like, we're talking about big changes in intelligence, which then result in big changes in capabilities. And when you're talking about advanced reasoning and all these things that Strawberry will be able to do, again, I think that things like math has always been a difficult challenge for large language models. This is apparently going to be really good at that. When you can start doing math, all of a sudden you can start solving physics problems and chemistry problems and science problems. So on that side of things, it's going to be pretty game changing, I think. But I think there's going to be obviously implications for the tourism industry and for every other industry as well. So
Hmm.
to be determined, we're going to see. But I just wanted to raise it because this is the kind of stuff that guys like us geek out about and get excited about. And I'm actually giving a keynote presentation on the 20th, which is sort of supposed to be like, maybe the day before we'll get strawberries. So maybe we'll be throwing strawberries at people in the audience. We'll see. Should be fun. All right, so switching gears now, we're going to get back to kind of our main topic today, which is all about AI powered website chatbots. So I wanted to tee this up a little bit because, there's a pretty negative history in the tourism industry when it comes to chatbots. It's interesting because I feel like chatbots hit the market. You see them on websites. I never go to them. They've been kind of crappy, to be honest with you, to date. But a lot of those chatbots were just sort of pretty basic chatbots. And now all of a sudden AI is making chatbots better because the AI can sort of absorb a lot of information a lot more quickly, find the information more accurately, and sort of bring it back to you. But it's probably not perfect yet. And so I wanted to kind of tee this conversation up with sort of, first of all, before we kind of talk about, the pluses and minuses of AI powered website chatbots versus sort of non AI powered website chatbots, what are the things people need to sort of know and prepare for on their websites before they even think about implementing an AI powered chatbot?
Yeah. So that's an important place to start because everybody assumes when they see a chatbot on someone else's website, like the airlines have chatbots now that are AI powered, right? Think about United. And what you would expect the chatbot to do for you is help me solve the problem that's in front of me as a customer, right? That's when we're thinking about like the website front facing side, like as a user, you need something and you're trying to find the answer. And from a business standpoint, you want to answer those questions accurately and as fast as possible. And whichever method is the cheapest across the board, right? Like whether it's a person, a robot, an AI. So when we talk about like what do you need to have in place for to even start the conversation of could we implement an AI solution here is first a knowledge base of information about your business, information about your services written down, which is like so elementary, but I think a lot of people haven't thought through this before of like if you're a small mom and pop shop in a local destination, in a very rural area and your customer base is like, less than 1,000 people a year, that like written documentation is probably in somebody's head. It's
Yeah,
probably like, oh, well, John knows that because he runs the customer service and
right.
front desk. And it's like, AI can't get in John's head right now. Like we're not at Neuralink at scale. Like So the first step is getting things written, like just either in not on paper, but like from paper, from someone's mind to paper to on the computer and on the web. Ideally, the information lives on your website so that as people are searching the internet to find questions, you can help them find their information and be helpful and then serve them. But the yeah, that's like the prerequisite is knowledge base, first of all, because anybody can put ChatGPT on their website and just have it out there. But do you really want your customers to be talking to just like the ChatGPT model and trying to ask it questions about your business, but it not actually know about your business?
You don't
Um,
want that.
which it's like obvious, right? But then we've seen so many examples of companies who have just done that verbatim and then gotten flamed either legally or by like just a viral, like terrible moment of something like, think about the auto dealerships we've seen go down in flames because they gave away an Escalade or something crazy, right? So the second component is custom instructions for your chatbot to help it fully embody your brand. And
Mhm.
when we say fully embody your brand, there's so many pieces to that puzzle. There's the like the words we use, our brand phrases, like we think about brand core, like mission, vision, values. How do you have a robot embody your values as it sits on the internet in front of your customers on the website, right? So there is a really important like branding component.
Yeah.
And then when we talk about any sort of human computer interaction, we need to go down the user experience path. Like, what is the process like from someone finding your chatbot to engaging with it? What do those conversations look like? So now we start to get into more complicated as we build chatbots, especially for websites. We have to determine what is the end path we want to take people through. And then we got to also figure out what do those conversations sound like, feel like, and how to, how is the user going to actually get to the answer they want.
Right.
So there's like, in terms of implementing these solutions, we often approach it with a crawl, walk, run methodology, and this is just a phased approach that we basically use to pump the brakes on, trying to build too much all at once that'll get ahead of where the company might be at. So like if you're the company and you're smaller, like you may not need to have a chatbot that's fully connected to your post customer, like customers looking up their orders in your system or retrieving all their, destination booking information right away. Like we want to help them contact you. We want to help them answer FAQ questions. And that's our like crawl phase is really just keeping it simple because it's significantly less dev time, significantly less tech debt to build that crawl, walk, run progression and build on it as we go, as we have learnings. Big factors to consider is, what sort of traffic are you getting on your site? If it's low and the queries that people might be asking are like few and far between, maybe a few per day, like we would always push you to just have the chat bot be your person at the front desk,
Right.
right? Like, don't give up your brand, the brand experience that you have. Like, you have a gold mine there in that, like, you don't have to build a robot. You have someone that could just pick up the phone and be like, how can I help you?
Yeah.
And that,
Yeah.
as a human, I think is the most important factor. Like, people want to talk to people. And I think, well, at least one of our default, like, assumptions about folks is that they hate talking to computers.
Hmm.
And, like, that's like a broad stroke, right? But in all of the solutioning that we do, we start with this premise that like people are probably annoyed that they have to work on a computer for this, and they'd probably rather be outside. And by and
Yeah.
large, and that assumption has gotten us such a better understanding of like when we start to build these things from a very simple standpoint. Like, yes, could we build amazing, complicated, automated AI that sounds almost like a human? Yes. But should we is the question. And that maybe is the most important thing we start with every time is
That's a
like, should
great
this
question.
even be AI? If yes, great. If no, should it be automation?
Yeah.
If yes, great. If no, should this just be a person
Yeah.
or some combination of the three, right? And that is normally
Yeah.
where we land is what's the combination of the three where you still have this personal touch. You have AI doing some admin in the background, you have automation doing some admin in the background, and you have a customer experience that's enriched
Yes.
because I'm more available as the human to help you if the admin's taken care of. And that's I don't know, I kind of like it's almost like a catch 22 to rug
Yeah.
pull the conversation like, well, what's the chatbot everybody does need? And it's like first you should try to solve the problem as effectively as possible with people because that's going to do so much for your brand long term.
Yeah.
And you can just fix problems like instantaneously, whereas that, to program AI to do that times, 1,000 different problems that could come up for your customers that's a lot of tech debt. You
Yeah.
could spend, I mean, they're big companies. Like we see the big companies, they're spending millions of dollars on their little website chatbot.
Yeah.
And as a small business, yours could look the exact same with, 1,000 times less money invested.
Yeah.
It doesn't make it equally equal.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's a
It's
big consideration. If you're medium sized, if you're large, like if you have a huge customer support team, for example, we've seen use cases of companies who are able to answer their customer questions faster,
hmm
more accurately, and improve customer satisfaction because they were already operating at such a large scale that their customer service team wasn't keeping up.
right.
That's
Then it
when we
makes
start
sense.
to balance like there because there's all these depending on your volume
Yeah.
and your current level of support. Sometimes chatbots are a great offer because the people are going to get the answers they need faster, and they might get better answers
Yeah.
than your current offer. And then we see this most commonly in companies who chose to offshore. Like they offshored all their customer service, and now you're picking up a phone and it's someone who you may or may not be able to communicate effectively with. And that's
Yeah.
like a reality, unfortunately, for so many companies that went that path. So in those instances, like talking to an AI or chatting with an AI might be a better option.
Right.
And it's certainly going to be cheaper in some cases. But on the lower side, if you haven't even deployed automation or offshore or any of these other like, pre-built kind of solutions, you're probably winning right now in your
Yeah.
current status, as long as it's not costing too much on the people side. So now we're
Yeah.
looking at how do we augment the people in the admin first so that we can keep folks on the front line.
Yeah. So I wanted to dive into a couple points there, sort of, or things that came up in my mind as you were talking. Because number one, what I'm noticing and what I'm seeing is, first of all, the companies that have been doing a lot of content marketing and creating a lot of content and putting it on their website very consistently over the last few years, first of all, are crushing it when it comes to the SEO game on the AI side. So, for example, I noticed all of our SEO clients that are doing well on Google actually are showing up well on sort of like on, in the AI tools. And that probably is a bit of an interesting starting point. Obviously, if you've been doing that work, that probably means you have a lot of good content on your website. You've probably been answering people's questions on your website. You probably have an FAQ on your website.
Mm,
All of the foundational things that you actually need to empower an AI chatbot. So if you're just a small business, to your point, that hasn't really been doing a great job of content marketing, or haven't
mhm,
been sort of consistently sort of putting up content and sort of, kind of evolving your website over time, you probably don't even have enough content for the chatbot to really do much with. That's number one. But number
mhm,
two, I wanted to really jump off the point about what you're talking about and ask a question related to it, because you kind of mentioned, you know, if you're a small business, you don't get that many inquiries, maybe just having a human answering the questions is the best way to go. And I agree. And my question to you is, however, businesses be thinking about how do we capture those conversations using the AI tools so that in the future, if we want to have a website chatbot or use AI different ways, we're able to then leverage those conversations. So why don't we kind of unpack that a little bit and sort of, first of all, do you think that is something that businesses should be considering as they're sort of thinking through AI in general?
mhm. Yeah, I think it's an important question because you're talking about breaking down, like when you ask me that, I think about breaking down all the tasks that happen to answer their question, right? Someone's going to reach out. And even if this, and you could see this as a phone call too, because AI chatbots on websites and AI phone calling is pretty much in the same, they're like one to one right now in terms of performance, in terms of capability, like the integrations, all this. I think it's a really good path to go down and look at the hybrid method of, can you have the person, your customer, get to a human as fast as possible? Yes. I think that should be the goal with every chatbot, honestly. It's my personal take.
Hmm.
And if that's the goal, but you want to leverage AI to do the admin, easy things that you could have your assistant first do is capture their information, grab their contact info, take their name down, and hand over all that information directly to both the human who's going to help them and the CRM. So whatever they're using to store their data about the customers, we should be gathering as much information, doing all the admin and moving the data and saving it in the system as quickly as possible and automating. And AI can do that with you. The AI can help control and manage the admin of pushing these automations to send the data, right? I think that's a good starting point for people to be thinking about. If I was, because if you go on a website, it's easy to think about the user experience because everybody's gone through this in some way, shape, or form. Like when you have a question, say a billing question, how do I cancel my subscription? And a company's made it really difficult for you to do that. Like you end up hating that company by the end of the experience because you had to jump through all these hoops, you had to go through web pages, you had to like call some number and then sit on a wait list forever, right? Like that's like a terrible like experience as a human because they're wasting your time.
Yeah.
So I think the best thing you can do with this combination of a hybrid approach is not waste people's time. And if there's a queue of people, like even if you're told like, hey, there's 5 people in front of you, can you hold or we can call you back when it's your turn? That's what a lot of really good experiences have been programmed to do. So that you're going to reach a person, they're going to help you, but it's also like I'm not having to wait here with my whole music and listen to their whatever they put on the playlist, which is always terrible music. So that's one thing. And I think as the person's then navigating, whether it's voice, like a phone call that they call back, or it is like a chat situation, when the conversation interaction ends, and the person has solved the problem and moved that customer ticket and closed that customer ticket, then the AI picks up again and shifts all that data back into the system automatically, right?
Yeah.
So, and that would assume they're using like a different, fragmented system. There are some systems where all of this is just fluid, but being able to save that person from having to go like, okay, I talked about this. They're going to go
Yeah.
write a note in the person's file. Like they don't have to do that anymore because AI can look at
Does
the
that,
whole
sorry, I'm going to
conversation.
pause you on that point. So is that sort of like a, is the advice here to, as you're doing customer service to, have an otter or some kind of like tool that can kind of capture the conversation and sort of do a transcript and record it? Is that sort of what you're kind of
Yeah,
sort of
I mean, in
methodology?
terms of like phone conversations, yeah, like there's so many AI tools. Otter's not probably the
Totally.
best one for them, but there's so many AI tools that can transcribe the call. They're going to record, they're going to catch your recording, and that all is going to be saved to their account, right? Like if you're using a HubSpot, you're going to automatically save that data, and it's probably directly integrated already. Like there's so many tools that do that.
Yeah.
And so that is an instance where now, like, what's the AI piece? It's really using the audio file and transcribing it. Is that's where the AI is coming
Yeah.
in on a transcription level, and then most likely also going to take that transcription and create a summary.
Hmm.
So the summary then can live in kind of above the file, so you don't have to go deep and look at the whole conversation, whether it was a chat or a voice conversation. And then, yeah, you can use AI for classification to tag, oh, this was this type of question. This was this
Hmm.
type, they had this type of intent. These were the utterances. And these are some of the like terms we use when we're talking about building chatbot conversations. Utterances and intents are like intent is where do they want to go? What do they need? Utterances is like what are the words that they said to indicate what they needed. And like for us as
Right.
humans, that's like we don't even have like we don't even ever use the term inference, but like it's
Right.
easy for us to naturally process the conversation versus like for AI to have gotten here, we had to like train, and that's what the training data is, like training like AI to know like when someone says like I can't cancel my subscription, like they're talking about billing. That took, millions of dollars of training data to get to it to get an AI model to understand like, oh yes, this is a billing related question, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
totally. Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah. So I mean, I think kind of, starting point, I guess, based on this conversation is really you need to have your data in order first. If you don't have your data in order, then, there's an opportunity to, the AI tools can help us sort of capture a lot more data, organize that data. And, I think, just also having your, customer service sort of conversations recorded with a tool and transcribed. You talked about your brand voice and all that kind of stuff. It also gives you as an opportunity as an employer to sort of say, are we answering questions that are consistent with our values and our brand voice and all the things? There's
Mhm.
obviously training opportunities that can come out of that. So, it's not just for your AI chatbot on your website, but it could be used for all kinds of different purposes that has all kinds of value for your business. And the tools, I think, just make it easier to capture those conversations, digest those conversations, turn those conversations into, either an AI chatbot or a learning opportunity or, whatever it is, right? So, I think
Mhm.
we're at a place now where if your brand isn't sort of capturing as many of the conversations as that you're having as possible, then you're probably kind of falling behind a little bit, let's just say, right? So I know you and I have talked about data hives and things like that, which we'll dive into in another episode. But that whole concept sort of really fascinates me and something I think we need to sort of dive deep into. So switching gears just a little bit here, obviously in the tourism space, one area or one sort of, I guess, part of the industry where I think AI chatbots are a really good option are destinations, so DMO websites, because destinations are organizations that have, first of all, they get a lot of inquiries. Second of all, they have a lot of content on their website in terms of, 10 things to do here, all the hikes in the region, like that is their job, right? Is to sort of like talk about and describe all the things in the destination that there is to do. And those are the types of questions often that come in, right? And so I spoke to Tourism Kelowna a couple episodes back, who implemented an AI chatbot, which was just an addition to they had like a live agent support service. And then that support service had an AI chatbot sort of feature as well. And so a couple of things that came out of that conversation was number one, brand voice, which you mentioned, they said, well, it sort of captures our brand voice because it only pulls information from our website, which was written by sort of somebody who's, sort of trying to keep a consistent brand voice throughout all of our communication. So it sort of automatically is captured in there. So, I mean, that's sort of, I guess, a content marketing 101 is like have a
Mhm.
brand voice and
Right.
use it consistently. And then, the other piece that he said was, there, we would get a lot of questions. So first of all, the other piece to the Tourism Kelowna chatbot was there was always a quick ability to connect with a human. So to your point, there was, while you might, and first of all, it was very transparent. You're talking about AI, you're talking to an AI chatbot. If you would like to connect to a human, let me know. And if not, I'll try to answer your questions. And then sort of it had a limit in terms of there was times where, okay, I didn't know the answer to your question. I'm going to connect you to a human anyways, type of thing. So they had it really well set up. And then the experience that Steve, who I interviewed, shared with me was, there's been a lot of learning for them as well in terms of the types of questions, the way people ask the questions and phrase. And so they've been adding to their FAQ document throughout the experience. So it's been a very two-way kind of street for them. So anyways, I just wanted to sort of paint that picture of, I think destinations are really an area where this is probably a more relevant conversation than, let's just say, a small fishing resort or a smaller operation that has, much less inquiries. Having said that, let's switch to kind of a more, I guess, technical conversation when it comes to AI chatbots. And are are you implementing out of the box kind of AI chatbots? Are you custom creating them? Like, tell me a little bit about sort of the more technical side of the equation here.
Yeah, so there's a few things that stand across no, any implementation method, right? There's always going to be a knowledge base component. There's always going to be some automation and integration component. There's always going to be components like the brand voice, which we say is like, I think when you talk about that, maybe we need to like spend a little bit of time talking about that component too, because I'm very passionate about it. I used to be a brand strategist. As one of the first like ways I got into AI was building brand voice for AI systems. And then there's the actual platform and like methodology or framework to create like agents. And I'll talk about like generally first what those platforms and like different styles can do for you, and then what we prefer to do because it's really a preference thing at this point. There's so many good tools out there and ways. The more advanced that the base providers have gotten in their platforms, think OpenAI with the GPT models, think Claude with the the Sonnet model, the Opus, the Claude models, and Gemini models as well. The more advanced that all these systems have got, the more accessible getting started with chatbots has become. Mostly because at the same time these platforms have been building, they've been focused on the models. There's a ton of vendors that are focused on the interface. The
Right.
interface would be, what we actually see on the website. I just do this little pop-up window in the corner, right? And then there's also the like orchestration of like how do you reference the memory? How do you actually trigger the automations and how do you leverage the integrations? There's no code ways to do it. There's low code ways to do it, and then there's full stack ways to do it. And yeah, pretty much for where we stand, we try to stay in the like low code side. Some coding required, some programming, some integration, API programming required. But that allows us to then open up the floodgates of like pretty much anything's possible in that little like realm. And the reason we prefer to do it this way versus going, say, full stack is that the tech debt that you might incur in programming the interface, designing everything, orchestrating like full architecture for the retrieval, the knowledge, the inference, the spot checking, the making sure you didn't hallucinate, the like, connecting embedded in the systems is like kind of a lot. It's a ton. Like,
Yeah.
and in terms of like ease of implementation, I'll just use three simple examples for each of those layers. Is like basic level, you use OpenAI assistants, which is like the code version of the GPT, custom GPTs. You can add a couple custom actions, connect to some no code tools to give a basic chat a custom instructions so that it knows who's who it's supposed to be, what its role is, how it's going to interact with the knowledge base. The knowledge base is orchestrated inside of OpenAI's platform, so you're not doing any extra architecture. The only architecture you're doing is prompt engineering inside of your prompts to tell it what knowledge it has access to and how to use the knowledge base and how to use the custom actions and what it can do in the custom actions. Like that's all just prompting, not like programming. And then yeah, connecting those third-party tools as actions, which you can do. You can connect to make.com, Zapier, all the basic no-code tools. And so that's like most, I will say that's 90% no code. So it could fall in the code camp.
Slightly
There are
low code.
some wrapper tools that just make it
Sure.
really no code for like end users, and that's like we don't even name names and most of the time because they're a dime a dozen and they literally all do the same thing. then there's this middle layer of, the API that you need may not actually be there. Maybe we need to customize some bits and pieces of like their knowledge base and create a, RAG layer, or make it easy for them to modify and update, say, their knowledge base. And it's probably worth noting at this point, the way that AI memory works is the model will vectorize, which create a bunch of shapes to represent the information that it's absorbing, and then save that to memory. And then when you recall it, what it's doing is measuring the shape. And this is very oversimplified, so please don't come at me if you're an ML guy or a Gen AI like knowledge person. This is different persona, I guess we're targeting here. But vectorizing is just measuring the shapes. Like I asked ChatGPT for this thing, it goes looking through its knowledge and finds things that are about the same shape as what I'm asking for and uses that to respond as its context, right? So instead of thinking like computers think in binary, AI thinks in shapes. That's the main difference.
Interesting.
And
Yeah.
from a technical perspective, that's better. That would cause like I get filleted for that. But anyways, the devs aren't here. So that middle layer is where you get a ton of power, and the dev cost, like if a custom GPT is in the like sub 5K range, like we'll just like throw some numbers out. In the middle might be like your 5 to 15, 25K even. You can do so much to serve. And so if you're a DMO, you're probably falling in this regard. And then there's some more complicated examples like integrating with some serious tools like if you wanted at your DMO your website users to be able to book, booking.com and flights and Ubers and train rides to get to your destination and do the events and pull all of this stuff together, you're going to build a full stack version where you're going to have to bring in a designer. You're going to bring in a UX so UI, UX. I'm just going to list out like a whole product team because you're building a core product for your
Building a
company.
product. Yeah.
Right. And that's different than like adding a chatbot feature to a website. And
Right.
maybe that's the thing people need to be thinking about when they're aiming at which level's right for us. Like I'm in the like 5K range, I'm in the like 15 to 25, or I have like a big ambition and vision to like really connect the users that are coming to my site to all the great places locally. That's like 50 to 500K, right? And just to do that, and if you're building a core product team in-house, you're at multiple six figure or seven figures a year to like
Yeah.
furnish that product team, right? So this is where it starts to get really complicated. But like most DMOs, most tourism organizations, like they're not they don't need to get concerned and swelled up with like, do we need an AI team,
Right.
right? Like you
Yeah.
need a guide in AI, and the guide is going to help you figure out whether you should build or buy, right? Should we just buy a chatbot solution off the shelf and have somebody configure it for us?
Mhm.
Should we tinker and build our own version but keep it pretty lightweight? Or are we really looking to invest in a core product and trying to be like an industry leader in the space and do something far bigger than just our destination organization, right? Like you're talking about changing your business model.
Yeah.
So that's generally where we help people sort out. And like it comes up every conversation when we work with clients. We've already seen this, Peter, in our client work together. There's always some opportunity for a core product. And the big question we have to decide is like, is this worth the squeeze? Because we know the tech debt we could incur for it. And as an implementation team, like as an implementation lab, like our lab is like excited and always chomping at the bit to take on big projects. But like we also are have learned like it's not just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. And with
Yes.
where AI is at and that it could unlock all sorts of amazing opportunities, that doesn't mean we have to pursue them all. And not we should push everybody to pursue because small businesses, they need this little guy, and
Yeah.
that can be helpful, and it can do its job of booking appointments and connecting the person to a human in a creative way that saves them time and gets the answers fast, right? And then does a little bit more, like really accomplishes a bunch of the admin, helps people find all the answers they're looking for, but not like handle it for them.
Yeah.
Like handle,
Yeah.
oh, you want to come visit the cave that's down south? Cool. Click this button. We'll book your flight. We'll get you an Uber and a hotel at our local spot. But
Right.
I think that does tee up, I think, the next part of the conversation that I wanted to ask is like with DMOs specifically, you've had a vision for helping them bring the information, knowledge, and data they're sitting on
Yeah.
to the AI world and bridging this gap of like DMOs have all the connections and local
Yes.
resource
Yes.
information, and ChatGPT doesn't. Can you talk to that? Because I think that's something
Yeah,
we've
yeah, yeah.
really been
Well,
dreaming up.
it's in it. Yeah, thanks for raising it. And I would say ChatGPT maybe has it, but they've stolen it. And I'll just sort of say it like they've obviously scraped it from the web and that they've gotten that information. So I think what you're talking about is something that I've been kind of pretty passionate about for the last little while, which is really this concept of sovereign AI. And it sort of isn't exactly sovereign AI, but it's sort of a version of it. And so just for context, sovereign AI is sort of this term that's like, governments using AI for culture and for sort of, information, sort of that type of thing, right? But I think if you think about a DMO, it's like ultimately, if you think about how large language models are trained, they want to be trained on the best information, written the best, verified by third party, sort of, third party verified, that type of thing. And if you think about a DMO website, it's like the DMO's website has everything is fact checked, everything is accurate, everything is sort of, verified, it's well written, it's consistently written with a brand voice. So all of the things that a DMO does is something that would be relevant to an OpenAI, for example, in terms of training their next model, right? So this kind of concept, even though it's not directly sovereign AI, I've been sort of pitching to a lot of DMOs around why don't we sort of, get together as an industry and, go to a company like an OpenAI and say, you know what, we want to do a licensing deal with you when you train your next model. And we want you to use all of the good information that we've spent literally thousands and thousands of dollars creating, that's all over our websites and all over our knowledge bases and whatever, so that when you actually train your model, it's trained on the most accurate, up-to-date, best knowledge possible about the destination. Ultimately, the destinations are the holders and the keepers of everything in that destination, right?
The next question, so here's the other piece of that I think is super relevant for DMOs is that yes, like structuring and getting together and structuring across the like destination organization like space to compile all the data and approach, a licensing deal with the big providers. I think that's a wonderful like vision. And to get there, every single DMO is going to have to get organized now, right? As you're talking through, should we have a
Yes.
chat? What should our chatbot on the website be capable of? What should it be doing? Every chatbot needs a knowledge base, and the knowledge base that they have and the knowledge base that they could have, there's a gap in most organizations because they don't think AI first, and that's fine. But like that's a
Right.
huge thing that the Tourism AI Network is setting out to do with DMOs is get organized in your data, organize the knowledge base you have so that as the capabilities of AI increase and as we collectively do this work, we'll be in a place to where that data is well suited to go at, to go to the big providers and license. But there's so much benefit to just doing it for yourself
Exactly.
too, because the chatbot that you have, the
Yes,
website
there is.
content
Yeah.
you have, like all of this data really should be organized to make sure that you are pushing it through. Like, think about your chatbot being able to actually help someone find the right hike for them. Not just like here are 10 best hikes based
Right.
off of listicle, but like, well, if you're walking with five people and you want a quick loop route, here's three options that might check your box that are under 5 miles. Like if it's just a
Yeah.
listicle, it's not going to actually answer all those questions, but like the answers to those questions as the DMO. And it's the same with all the historical place
Yeah.
markers, right? With all the indigenous historical components and
Yes.
destination like places to see, things to learn, information to find. Like all the information is there, especially look across, BC and the various like tourism hotspots and even the places that aren't hotspots. Like there are organizations everywhere that know
Yeah.
this information, but once again, you have to go talk to somebody for it. You have to go ask. And so it's really
That's right.
embodying the information and knowledge that you own as a whole thing, creating an asset that is friendly to AI in the same way we would create an asset for brand voice, right? And that maybe is like a buzzword, like
Yeah.
people talk about it. We haven't talked about the detail of it, but it's literally just structuring your brand guidelines and your editorial guidelines in a way that's friendly for AI that we can hand in a document as part of a
Yeah.
knowledge base to a chatbot and say, double check everything you say based off of this instruction. Like, right? That's what giving brand voice to an AI
Yeah. Yeah.
is. In the same way that you would give that to your
Yeah.
new grad, like marketing assistant person to be like, every time you make an Instagram post, you should make sure we don't do this and we do this and we say things like this because we paid some
Yeah.
consultant to
Yeah.
help
Yeah.
us establish these guidelines, right?
Do that.
And then when
Yeah.
they mess
Yeah.
up, it's like inevitable. This was the cycle I used to be in. I'd get an email from a client, hey, why'd you use the wrong logo on my Instagram post? We don't have a trademark yet. Or we don't have, yeah, we
Right.
don't have that. And we're not restricted. Like, but and I'd be like, what? We have a brand guide. Why? And I go back to the brand guide to look at it, and I message the junior associate, be like, what? Hey, why'd you use that logo? Oh, I downloaded the wrong pack.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
And that happens. Or like, oh, you
Yeah.
use this word, but it's explicitly not the tagline. Like we're supposed to say the
Right.
tagline
Right.
words,
Yeah.
not this words. We say these words, we don't say these words because of the branding, right? Like we have a consistency we're going for. Like when you hand that to a human versus hand that to an AI, depending on how well you communicate and what your current process and revision and review is on both sides, you're going to be able to see like, good employees who are intelligent and smart and like diligent will get it right. And in AI, it's not that the AI is lazy, it's good prompts that are diligent and
Right.
intelligent
Right.
and descriptive win. That's what
Yeah.
we're talking about, creating an asset that you hand to an AI to help you, right? And so
Right. Yeah.
same thing applies with, the thousands of pieces of information that you know about your local area as a DMO. We want you
Yeah.
to fine tune your own little models so that you can answer those questions accurately and really
Yeah.
help
Yeah.
people find what they're looking for.
Nice. I love that. Yeah. We do gotta probably jump off here soon, but I do want to sort of jump on one point that you mentioned because it's relevant exactly to this sovereign AI concept because you mentioned indigenous. And so this is like probably the area where I'm most excited when it comes to sovereign AI. And I've been talking to one group and I hope to talk to more about, this group I'm talking to really wants to preserve their culture, their heritage, and their history. And they have a whole bunch of information that's not sort of digitized yet in artifacts. And they have the thing about Indigenous Canada, and especially on the Métis side. So that's sort of, anyways, sort of, I'm not going to get into what that means too much, but they're sort of, kind of mixed between Indigenous and non-Indigenous people get married, and those folks are called Métis. And so there are these Métis groups across the country who have to do a lot of work to prove their historical claims as Métis people, and then they can get sort of status as a Métis people as a group. And so they've done the work, they've done the research, they've looked through the historical files, they've sort of found all the stuff and made their historical claims. So it's a great example of sort of AI in terms of now, okay, we have all this stuff. Can we actually, and we have language and all this other stuff, can we actually package that in a way to take it and get it licensed by an open AI, let's just say as an example, and get it part of the training? And now all of a sudden you're preserving this history and this culture and this language. And so, that's just sort of a good example of sovereign AI, which is why I wanted to jump on that point. So thanks, Josh. I think this has been a sort of a great first conversation about chatbots on websites. It's probably not the last one we're going to have, but I think it gave a lot of food for thought in terms of just things to think about before you're even sort of, don't just go to the solution, right? Don't go to the technology first. You got to think a little bit deeper than that before you get there. And so if you need some help thinking through those things, that's what we're here for. That's what we're here to do. So hit us up. And otherwise, if you are liking the new format, do let us know. Do subscribe to this podcast. Certainly like it and do all the things. Share it with your colleagues and tune in next time. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for joining Peter and Josh on another episode of the Tourism AI podcast, where they dive into the AI tools they're building to help tourism operators and DMOs perform, as well as other relevant updates for the tourism industry. Stay up to date between episodes at tourismainetwork.com or on socials at Tourism AI Network.